control structure. So here we are going to learn how we can use if and else and switch statement, and how we can use while and do while and for statements, and also how we can use so-called branching statements such as break, continue, and return. So decision control structures, we are talking about if and if and else statement. So based on some kind of the Boolean check, it will perform a particular block or another block, things like that. So let's take a look at an example. So if statement. So if statement will have some kind of Boolean expression. So this Boolean expression will be evaluated, and if it returns true, then the statement will be executed in this case. Typically, you want to have a code block. If there is a single statement, then you don't have to have this code block. If there are multiple statements, you have to have a code block. Okay? So even if you have a single statement, it is a good practice to use this code block braces, okay, to make sure that the correct set of statements are in fact being executed, and it's actually easier to read as well. Okay, so this is an example. So example 1, we have a single statement, and example 2, we have double statements, 2 statements. So here we check if grade is greater than 60, and if that's the case, this statement will be executed. And here, if grade is greater than 60, then this code block will be executed, meaning these 2 statements are executed. You can also use if and else. So if this Boolean expression turns out to be true, then this code block will be executed. Otherwise, this code block will get executed. Pretty straightforward. You can have a multiple if and else and if statement. So here we have if statement, and if it is not true, then this part of else will be performed. Now this part of else could also have another if and else. So here we do another if this statement, and if it's true, then statement 2 get executed. Otherwise, statement 3 gets executed in this case, and you can actually continue having like that. Okay? But if you have a multiple version, if you have a very nested if and else, that means your code is not really well designed. Okay, so if you have that kind of code, that's a sign that your code is not being written in a elegant way. Okay, so this is a case that we have if else and if and else statements. We check if grade is greater than 90, and greater than is between 60 and 90, and else. So pretty straightforward. Common errors. So condition inside the if statement does not evaluate to Boolean value. So when you're using if statement, the things that you have in this parenthesis need to be evaluated to a Boolean value, meaning true or false. Okay, so if somehow the value does not evaluate it to Boolean value, that is a compile error. Okay, so in this case, int is not Boolean type. So if you're trying to use that int type as a Boolean type, that's a compile error. Okay, so that could be a common error you might actually see in your code. Writing if instead of, so there has to be some space between else and if. So if you want to have another if statement for else, that you have to have a space. So else, if you don't have a space, that's a compile error. Equal sign versus equal. So this is pretty important. Equal sign means assignment. So in this case, when you're using, if you want to actually have a logic whether number is 0 or not, you want to use equal. So this is the way that you want to use. If you're using a single equal sign, that means you are making an assignment. So single equal sign means assignment, meaning assigning the right side the value to the left side variable. So you are assigning 0 to number, okay, so that certainly is not what you want. So if you want to compare whether number is 0 or not, then you want to use equal sign for comparison. Okay, switch statement. So switch statement allows branching on multiple the possibilities. So this is the syntax. You say switch, and then you have a switch expression, and then this switch expression will be the evaluated on these cases. So if the value of this switch expression turns out to be case selector 1, then this set of these two statements are going to be executed, and then break then means you are getting out of this switch statement. And if this value turns out to be case selector 2, then these two statements get executed, and so on. Now, if none of these values, is none of case selectors are matched with this value of a result of this evaluation, then default will be used. So in this case, the statements on the default will be executed. So as you can see, in each case statement, you don't actually use the braces. Okay. Another important thing for switch statement is that break. So if you don't have a break, then it will continue to execute. So it's very important that you end each case with a break statement. Okay. Okay, so that is basically now the switch expression. What kind of things you can have as a switch expression? So the it could be integer or character expression. Now from Java SE7, you can also have a string expression as well. Okay. So this is basically what I actually explained. So when the switch is encountered, it will just compare with the value, and it will evaluate this guy first, switch expression, and then just compare for each cases. And the break will break out of the switch statement. Yeah, so I said you don't need to have a curly braces. Okay. A case in a switch statement has been matched. All the statements associated with that case are executed. Okay. Yeah. So let me actually just talk about this one more time. Java first evaluates this expression and jumps to the case where selector matches the value of the expression. Okay. That's what I said. And program executes the statement in order from that point until it sees the break statement. Okay, so it's important to have a break statement for each of those, the case statement. If none of those cases are satisfied, then default block will be executed. So let's see an example. Yeah, so this one actually shows the flow chart of switch statement. So it actually basically has, this is a case statement and then default. Okay, and each code block will end with a break statement. Okay, so this is an example. So in our previous example, we use if else and if and else, right? So instead, it's probably better to use a switch statement. This is a bit more cleaner. So in this case, we are going to display excellent, good job, and study harder, or sorry you failed, 4 different cases depending on the grade. So if the grade is if the grade is between 90 to 100, then it will be excellent. Between 80 and 90 is a good job, and then between 70 and 80 is study harder, and then below is actually default. Okay, so each of these cases should end with a break statement. Okay, coding guideline. Deciding whether to use if statement or switch statement is a judgment call. In general, if you have a multiple the values to compare, then switch statement is something that you want to think about. Okay. However, there are certain things that the switch statement cannot do. So switch statement cannot handle the range check. Okay, so if statement, you can certainly provide the range check as the Boolean value, right? However, switch statement, the expression has to return a single value. Okay, it could be either integer, it could be a character, or it could be a string. Okay, it does not handle kind of range of things. Okay, so if you are dealing with a range of things, then you probably want to use if statement, or we do some kind of tricks like this. In this case, we we actually divide it, and then the uh, uh, basically this is going to actually result in integer, and the fraction will be removed, and we just kind of multiply by 10. So we're doing a little bit of trick in this case to do some range check. Okay, so that is exercise 1. So let's take a look at the exercise 1. So if and else statement. So here we are going to import the Maven project. Okay, so this shows how to import the Maven project. So you might as well just import the whole thing. So the way you import the project is File, Import, and make sure that you are importing Maven project. Okay, not general project. So expand Maven, then select existing Maven project. Okay, and click next. Then you are going to browse to the samples Maven directory of, so in this case I go to this PC and C, and I go to labs, and then Java C control, that is the samples Maven. Okay, so if you select samples Maven, okay, then it will show all the projects that you can import. Since I have already imported it, it kind of gray them out. Okay, so once you have imported it, we're gonna actually run the project. Okay, so this is the project that we want to play around with, the my grades project. So my grade project, so let's actually run it. Run as, and Java application and grade. This is the main class. And so here we are asking math grade between 0 and 100. So let's say math grade is 79, and then history grade 55, 56, and then science grade 88, and then it computes the average 74.0. Okay, so that's basically what it does. So if you take a look at the code, we are just using so we are basically using JOption pane, show input dialog. So we are asking a user to enter math grade, and whatever that is entered will be converted into the int value using parse into static method of integer class. Same thing for history and same thing for science, and then we compute the average. Okay, and then we just display the average using JOption show message dialog as well. Okay, and so this is what happens. And next one is the if and else. This is the one is the my number words project. My number words project. So let's actually run this guy. So enter number between 1 and 10. So I'm going to enter 6, and it just displays 6. Pretty exciting. Okay, yeah, so depending on the number that you have entered, it will just display the message. Okay, very exciting program. All right, so that's pretty straightforward. So let me actually move on to the next presentation. In fact, I might actually finish up all the presentation, then I'm gonna let you have about 15 or 20 minutes to do all 3 exercises. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, and I'm kind of moving a bit faster. Repetition control structure. So here we are talking about while loop and do while loop and for loop. Okay, 3 different types of repetition control structures. So let's take a look at while loop. So while loop is that as long as this Boolean expression is true, then you want to execute this code. So inside the code, you might in fact have a logic to make this Boolean expression to be false. Okay, all right. So let's see an example of this. So in this case, x is set to 0. X is initially set to value to 0, and then we have a while loop. So as long as x is less than 10, we want to execute this code. So it will display the 0, and then we increment x by 1. So x becomes 1, and then it actually goes to this checking again. X is 1, so that is still less than 10, so this will be executed. Okay, so eventually x becomes 10. So this evaluation turns out to be false, and then it gets out of this for loop. Okay, if you say while true and this, then this will run infinitely. Okay, because this is hard-coded true value, right? Okay, and this is false, and this code will never get executed. So that's while loop. On the other hand, do while loop is similar to while loop. However, it actually performs this code block once before checking the this condition. So it will do these things first and then check whether this condition is still true or not. So in a case of do while loop, it always executes this code block at least once. Okay, so let's take a look at an example. So in this case, x is set to 0. And again, this is pretty much the same thing that you have seen. So in this case, it will get executed this one first, and then check the condition. Okay, again, oops. And this is the infinite condition, while true and while false. This one is actually different. So these two cases are the same with the previous while loop. However, this case, this case, it will execute this one at least once, right? And then it will check false. So in this case, it will execute at least this one once. In comparison to in our while loop, this one will never get executed because this condition is checked first before this one gets executed. So that's the difference between while and do while. For loop is probably something that you are going to see the most. So for loop has this form. This is in fact a pre-Java SE5 format. In fact, Java SE5 has what is called the enhanced for loop, which is a bit more convenient to use. Okay, but you need to actually understand both syntax. So this is a pre-Java SE5 format, which is still works. Okay, so for loop is so it's three different parts. The first part is initialization of your variable, then loop condition using that variable, and then step execution. Step expression is basically do something with that the variable, and then this code block. Okay, all right, so let's take a look at the example. So in this case, we have a for loop. Initially we set I to 0, and this is the condition, and then this is the step things. So what happens is that I is set to 0. Okay, and then it check whether I is less than 10. Because it's true, then this code block will be executed. Once this code block get executed, then this statement get executed, meaning I is incremented by 1. Okay, and then it will be checked again this condition. If it is still true, then this gets executed, things like that. Okay, so this is the same thing as this. So this is a for loop. So we are initializing I to 0. Okay, and then we have a while loop. Basically, we are using this condition as a while condition here, and then we perform this code block. In this case, we have a single statement, which is a system out println, and then this is going to execute it. So this gets executed I++. So this is the same thing as this guy. Make sense? So exercise 2 and 3 is for loop. So if you take a look at the lab documentation, so my for loop project. So let's run this guy, Java application, and enter so YJYZA. Okay, so basically it checks whether the things you typed in is in fact the in some kind of array or not. Okay, so let's run this guy one more time here. So you can, that's the previous case is that the YZA is found, but if you type something like this one, is probably not found case. Okay, so if you take a look at the code, we are using a for loop to see. We have in fact this is the string array. Okay, and we want to see whether whatever user typed in through this J option pane is in one of these the names. Okay, so basically we have a for loop, and inside the for loop we are using if statement to see whether the name that was entered, that was actually searched name. Okay, so that is actually captured as a searched name here. We want to see whether the search name is the same as one of these names. Okay, and if that is the case, then we set the file name equals true, then we break out. Okay, and then we display the result. All right, and that's basically what we just did. All right, so and while loop is again pretty much the same deal. So here we are just basically checking whether count is less than 5 or not, and we just display count. My name is so it will display my name 5 times. Okay. All right, so that's basically what happens. So it displays my name 5 times, and then build and run the Java application that use. So this is the do while case. Okay. So again, the only difference is that in this case, this will be performed at least once. Because we are checking whether that is less than 5 or not, the end result is probably the same. Okay. All right. I think that is the end of the presentation. Branching statement. So branching statements allows us to redirect the flow of program execution. So we are talking about these 3 different types of branching statement: break, continue, and return. So we have seen example of a break within a switch statement, right? Okay. We haven't seen the example of continue yet. So let's take a look at each of these in a bit more detail. Break is terminates the enclosing switch statement. Okay, and flow of controls transfer to the statement immediately following the switch. Okay. You can also use break within a for, while, and do while loop as well. Okay, so this is a case that we are using break statement. So basically we have a string of array of names, array of strings. So we have the 8 names, and basically we are going through each of these names, and we see whether that is actually equals to search name. If we found we don't have a need to continue anymore, so we can just break out of this for loop. So when you see a break, when you use a break within a for loop or while loop or do while, it actually breaks out at the repetition. Continue statement skips to the end of the innermost loop's body and evaluates the Boolean expression that controls the loop, basically skipping the remainder of this iteration to the loop. So let's see an example. So when we do have this continue within the for loop, okay, this will actually immediately go to the end of the for loop. So in that case, this count plus plus will not be performed. So anything in the remainder of the loop will be ignored, and it will go to the next loop. Okay. Return statement. So used to exit from the current method. So you can actually return the value. So this will be evaluated and the result will be returned. Well, in this case we are returning a string value or something like that. Now whatever you are returning has to match the return type of your method. Okay, so that's something that we haven't talked about in detail. So if you are not passing, if you're not returning the right type, meaning the type that is specified in the method, then it will be a compiler error. Okay. Again, we'll see examples of that in a bit more detail. Okay, so since this is kind of obvious exercise, I'm gonna let you have just 10 minutes to do the exercises, and then we'll move on.